Hi guys. So today I'll be reading Henry's Freedom Box. Henry's Freedom Box is a book that represents an important part of our history. Everybody should learn stories like Henry's. So this is a true story from the Underground Railroad. And it says some names at the bottom, who it's written by, who it's illustrated by, but I'm not sure because it doesn't say that. Okay, now it says, by Ellen Levine, illustrated by Cater Nelson. So, Henry Brown wasn't sure how old he was. Henry was a slave, and slaves weren't allowed to know their birthdays. Picture of Henry. Henry and his brothers and sisters worked in the big house where the master lived. Henry's master had been good to Henry and his family, but Henry's mother knew things could change. Do you see those leaves blowing in the wind? They are torn from the trees like slave children. From the trees like slave children are torn from their families. One morning the master called for Henry and his mother. They climbed the wide staircase. The master laid in bed with only his head above the quilt. He was very ill. He beckoned them to come closer. Some slaves were freed by their owners. Henry's heart beat fast. Maybe the master will set him free. But the master said, You are a good worker. Henry. I am giving you my son. You must obey him and never tell a lie. Henry nodded, but he didn't say thank you. That would have been a lie. Later that day, Henry watched a bird soar above the trees. Free bird, happy bird, Henry thought. Henry said goodbye to his family. He looked across the field. The leaves were swirled in the wind. I forgot to show you the picture. I love horses. Henry worked in his new master's factory. He was good at his job. Do not tear that tobacco leaf, the boss yelled at the new boy. He poked the boy with the stick. If you made a mistake, the boss would beat you. They walked. So Henry was lonely. One day he met Nancy, who was shopping for her mistress. They walked and talked and agreed to meet again. Henry felt like singing, but slaves didn't dare to sing in streets. Instead, he hummed all the way home. So I think in each picture he's growing up. Months later, Henry asked Nancy to be his wife. When they're both masters, Henry and Nancy were married. Soon there was a little baby, then another. Henry knew they were very lucky. They lived together and even thought they had different masters, but Nancy was worried. Her master had lost a great deal of money. I'm afraid she will sell our children, she said. Henry sat very still. Close up. Henry worked hard all morning. He tried to forget what Nancy had said. Just face. His friend James came into the factory. He whispered to Henry, "Your wife and children were just sold at the slave market." "No," Henry cried. Henry couldn't move. He couldn't think. He couldn't work. "Twist that tobacco." The boss poked Henry. Henry twisted tobacco leaves. His heart twisted in his chest. At lunchtime, Henry rushed to the center of town. A large group of slaves was tied together. The owner shouted at them. Henry looked for his family. "Father, father!" Henry watched his children disappear. Down the road. Where was Nancy? She saw her at the same moment. She saw him. Then he wiped away his tears. Nancy, too, was gone. Henry no longer sang. He couldn't hum. He went to work at night. He ate supper and went to bed. Henry tried to think of happy times, but all he could see were the carts carrying away everyone he loved. Henry knew he would never see his family again. Many weeks passed. One morning, Henry heard singing. A little bird flew out of a tree into the open sky, and Henry thought about being free. But how? As he lifted a crate, they knew the answer. He asked James and Dr. Smith to help him. Dr. Smith was a white man who thought slavery was wrong. They met early the next day at an empty warehouse. Henry arrived with a box. "I will mail myself to a place where there are no slaves," he said. James stared at the box, then at Henry. What if you caught and someone hears you?" "I will cover my mouth and hope," Henry said. Dr. Smith wrote a note on the box. To William H. Johnson, Arch Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Henry would be delivered to his friends in Philadelphia, then printed on the crate in big letters, this side up with care. Henry needed an excuse to stay home, or the work boss would think he had run off. James pointed to Henry, sore finger, but he knew it wasn't bad enough. He opened a bottle of oil I don't know what that says. So he opened a bottle of oil. "No!" James cried. Henry poured it on his hand. It burned his skin to the bone. Now the boss would have to let him stay home. Dr. Smith banged Henry's hand. They arranged to meet the next morning at 4 o'clock. There's his hand. The sun was not up yet. Henry climbed into the box. Ready, he said. James nailed down the lid. Dr. Smith and James drove to the station. The railway clerk tripped the box over and nailed paper to the bottom. Dr. Smith begged the clerks to be careful, but they didn't listen. They threw the box into the baggage car. Hours passed. Henry was lifted up and thrown again, upside down. He heard waves splashing. This must be the steamboat headed for Washington, D.C. The ship rode smoothly, but Henry was still upside down. Blood rushed to his head. His face got hot. His eyes ached, and he thought his head would burst. But he was afraid to move. Someone might hear him. That's him getting smushed to the bottom. I'm tired of standing, someone said. Why don't we move the box and sit on it? Said another. Henry held his breath. Could they be talking about his box? Henry was pushed. The box scraped the deck. Now he was on his right side. Now on his left. And suddenly right side up. What do you think is in here? Said the first man. Mail, I guess, said the other. I am mail, thought Henry, but not the kind they imagine. Henry was carried off the steamboat and placed in a railroad car. This time, his head fell asleep to the rattling song of the train wheels. He awoke to loud knocking. Henry, are you in there? Henry, are you all right in there? All right, he answered. The cover was pried open. Henry stretched and stood up. 4 men smiled at him. Welcome to Philadelphia. At last, Henry had a birthday, March 30th, 1849, the first day of freedom. And from that day on, he had also had a middle name. Everybody called him Henry Box Brown. Well, he never saw his children. Well, wait, that was the end of the story. So he never got to see his kids again or his wife, but at least he got to be free. And he was sad that he couldn't see his family again, but he was happy that he was free. So I hope you enjoyed my story. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and right before I did this, I posted a video with my grandma, if you guys want to see that. But if you're so bye guys, adios, amigos.